Oh, Mrs. Stanton, I was not expecting you today. No, no, please, please, have a seat. Have a seat. I must admit, this is rather surprising. Normally, one of my patients requires only two follow up visits after having eye surgery, and you've already had your second one. Is there something wrong? Mm hmm. Mm hmm. Mm hmm. Mm hmm. Mm hmm. Mm hmm. Yes, I can see how that would be a problem, Mrs. Stanton. You seem a little perplexed. Well, I mean, Mrs. Stanton, I did speak with you during the consultation about side effects. Well, no, Mrs. Stanton, I don't consider the brutal murder of your husband to be a side effect, but I did warn you of what could happen after the eye surgery. Yes, yes, no, no. Uh, Mrs. Stanton, you seem to be getting very upset. Let's go over this again. When you came to me, you had already gone to the best eye specialists in the world, the absolute best ones, and all of them told you that there was nothing they could do, that you were slowly going blind, and there was literally nothing that could be done to stop it or reverse it. Nothing. And then you came to me. Mrs. Stanton, there's a reason why I only cater to the top 1% in this world, financially speaking, such as yourself. Now, I told you that I could not only stop your macular degeneration, but not only could I reverse it, but I could give you better eyesight than you've had in decades, Mrs. Stanton. Now, let me ask you this. Did I keep my promise? Yes. Yes, I did. And I warned you, Mrs. Stanton. I warned you about the possible side effects. Now, as I said, it's not just the fact that you would have to wear cosmetic contact lenses for the rest of your life when out and about in public, but I warned you that late at night, especially on full moon nights, you would have to watch your temper. You told me it wasn't an issue. Well, clearly it is. Mrs. Stanton, here's how it works. I cannot use my procedures on human beings as donors because, well, it's not just the eyes themselves, but it's everything connected to the back of the eyes, which are also transplanted. And in order to do so effectively, donors have to be alive during the procedure. Now, yes, there are tranquilizers involved, but the simple fact of the matter is, Mrs. Stanton, that in order for my medical procedure to work, donors have to be alive. They can be tranquilized so that the procedure is severely less painful, but they have to be strapped down when the eyes are removed from them. And, well, simply put, Mrs. Stanton, I do have some morals. I won't use human donors, especially since no one would be insane enough to donate both of their eyes. It took me over a decade, Mrs. Stanton, to find animal eyes that were compatible. Now, ironically, anatomically speaking, apes, gorillas, and pigs would seem to be the best candidates, but they weren't. They weren't, Mrs. Stanton. Believe me, I did a lot of experimentation. Maybe more so than I should have. Let's just say that PETA would be very upset with me if they knew I existed. The simple fact is, Mrs. Stanton, the only type of eyes not belonging to human beings that work as donor eyes are from fully developed wolves. That's right. Now, I told you all of this when we first discussed the procedure. I mean, that's why you have to wear cosmetic contact lenses out in public, or dark sunglasses, because you no longer have your human eyes. They would soon be worthless, so we discarded them and gave you wolf eyes. Well, you can't walk around showing people your eyes. So, cosmetic contact lenses or dark sunglasses when out in public, when speaking with other members of your kind. Yes, the top 1% financially speaking. Yes. Mrs. Stanton, I warned you what could happen. You told me you don't have a temper. Clearly you were lying. Well, Mrs. Stanton, I don't care how upset you get now. It's daylight outside. Well, the truth is, Mrs. Stanton, my research revealed that in a certain number of cases, a wolf's personality, their lack of impulse control, because they are wild animals, can have negative effects on patients. Now, not during daylight hours, but at night, especially full moon. It is very important to remain calm. Apparently, your husband said something to you that ticked you off, and you blacked out. When you woke up, you were covered in blood, and he was dead, with quite a few of his body parts torn off. Oh, no. Mrs. Stanton, let me make this one thing very clear. You did not transform into a werewolf and attack your husband, and then transform back only an hour later while the moon was still up. That's not how it works. Mrs. Stanton, you don't really believe in that supernatural nonsense, do you? No, 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 no. Mrs. Stanton, here's what happened. You didn't listen to my advice. Your husband did something to tick you off. I mean, I don't think it's the numerous affairs he's been having, since you don't seem to really care about that. But, yeah, your husband is a very rich man. He married you when you were very poor, but young, with a nice body, beautiful face, and he gave you everything you could ever hope to have in life. He gave you a lot more than just financial security, luxuries of all kinds. And the first time you caught him cheating, well, you acted upset, you acted hurt, but you knew the deal, Mrs. Stanton. You knew. Your husband made sure you were taken care of, and when you got a little too old for him, he had affairs with younger women, but he never left you, mostly because he was probably afraid you would take at least half his fortune. But yeah, he never left you, he never divorced you, he never kicked you to the curb. And ironically, when you found out that you were going blind, your cheating husband was genuinely concerned about you. That's why he brought you to me, and I helped you, and I saved your eyesight, and I warned you. You are getting eyes from a wolf. At night, you must remain calm. Now, you are not the first patient I've had who has a temper. You're not. I wish you had told me about your temper earlier, but you didn't. Here's what happens with all of my patients who have a temper. They take tranquilizers, very powerful tranquilizers, at night to keep them calm, to keep them relaxed, so that nothing bothers them, so they don't lose their temper, so that the savage wolf doesn't psychologically come out. That's right, Mrs. Stanton, you don't transform into a werewolf. Your temper, mixed with the wolf's psyche, makes you temporarily go insane and lash out with claws and teeth. Well, you have teeth but no fangs. You have fingernails but no claws. Still, you could definitely do a lot of damage, Mrs. Stanton. And that's exactly what you did. Now, Mrs. Stanton, you should have told me about your temper. I could have arranged for some very powerful tranquilizers that would have helped you to stay calm. Heck, oh, there goes that stupid generator again. I mean, considering how much money I've made from you and the top 1% in this world, you'd think I could find a generator and some lighting that's actually reliable. Oh well. Anyway, where were we? Oh yes. Mrs. Stanton, You should have had some powerful tranquilizers, or at the very least, I wish that you were the type of individual who enjoyed a bit of weed. It would have kept you calm. Then again, for some people, it just makes them paranoid, so maybe it's best that that wasn't the case. But you should have had tranquilizers, and I would have given them to you if you had been honest with me and told me you have a temper. Now, Mrs. Stanton, as I said, you can get as upset with me as you'd like. It's daylight. You're not going to lose control. You're not going to black out and attack me the way you did your husband last night. And honestly, Mrs. Stanton, why would I report you to the police? So you can tell them about my experiments, the surgery. I mean, you're part of the top 1%. You could ruin my life if you wanted to. Then again, thanks to all the surgeries I've performed and all the friends I've made, I'm also part of the top 1%. And no offense, Mrs. Stanton, my friends are more influential than yours. Oh, yes. And besides, I actually would appreciate it if you would show me some gratitude. You would be blind right now if it wasn't for me. Now, Mrs. Stanton, there's no reason for us to be enemies. There's no reason for you to be upset. Like I said, I can provide you with some tranquilizers. And as far as your husband's body goes, well, I know some men. I can have them at your place within the hour. They'll clean up the mess. Yes. I dare say, Mrs. Stanton, your husband's body has probably, well, not probably, it has definitely started to rot and is stinking up the whole place. But no worries. I'll have those men come in, clean up the mess. You don't have to pay them. You don't have to give them a tip of any kind. They'll take care of everything. Oh, by the way, Mrs. Stanton, they're not going to know who you are, and I would strongly advise not asking them too many questions, and certainly do not ask them for their names. I will take care of this for you, Mrs. Stanton, and I will make sure that you have plenty of tranquilizers. But do not forget what I told you. You must control your temper. And if you can't, then you must take the tranquilizers. Oh no, the tranquilizers just make you feel calm and a little sleepy. If there's anything important you need to take care of, do it during daylight hours while wearing cosmetic contact lenses or thick, dark sunglasses. That way people can't see that you're walking around with a pair of wolf's eyes in your skull. Well, think about it, Mrs. Stanton. What's the alternative? A bit of inconvenience, some tranquilizers at night, or being blind for the rest of your life? And honestly, Mrs. Stanton, you're not that old. You're going to live a good long time. I mean, some tranquilizers late at night, not being able to do much at night, small price to pay for being able to see. Mrs. Stanton, I think we understand each other. And look on the bright side. You were going to inherit your husband's money anyway. this can be written off as your husband went outside and he encountered a stray wolf. No issues, no problems. You attacked him like an animal, it's going to look as though he was attacked by an animal. So that's going to be the story. You show up during the inquiry wearing contact lenses and dark sunglasses. You pretend to cry a bit. You get his money, everything else, and just enjoy the rest of your life, Mrs. Stanton. Yes, yes. Remember, you would be blind if it wasn't for me. And the next time a medical professional asks you some important questions, don't lie to them. This whole thing could have been avoided had you just been honest with me about having a temper. But that's all right, Mrs. Stanton. Like I said, I think we understand each other. You have a great day.